Once upon a time, in the lush, vibrant city of Uyo, the Okocha family was the epitome of success, wealth, and power. From the tall, imposing mansion in the heart of the city to the luxurious cars parked in the driveway, the Okochas were the picture of perfection. Their name was synonymous with influence. Chidi Okocha, the father, was a prominent politician, a distinguished member of the House of Representatives. His name carried weight in both the political and social circles of the state. His wife, Ngozi, was a well-known leader in Uyo, beloved by many of her generosity and influence. She was the matriarch of women's groups, a woman who carried herself with grace and who appeared to have everything under control. Together, they had two children, Uche, their son, and Ada, their daughter. Uche was a handsome young man, full of charisma and charm, while Ada was a striking beauty with a sharp mind. Both of them were attending the prestigious University of Uyo. To the outside world, the Okocha children were the epitome of success, good-looking, intelligent, and from a family of considerable wealth. They had everything anyone could dream of: an impeccable education, lavish vacations, an endless supply of money, and every material possession they could ask for. But while their parents' wealth seemed to make them the envy of others, it was this very privilege that would soon lead their children down a dark path, one from which they will never return. Uche and Ada were not like the other students at the University of Uyo. While many students struggled to pay their tuition and had to manage their expenses carefully, the Okocha siblings lived a life of excess. They wore designer clothes, drove expensive cars, and threw lavish parties every weekend. Money was never an issue, and it made them popular among their peers, particularly with other wealthy students who were more than happy to be seen with the children of the great Chidi Okocha. But this excess led to a sense of entitlement in both Uche and Ada. They surrounded themselves only with those who could afford the same luxuries they did, dismissing those who weren't as rich or privileged. The concept of hard work or humble beginnings was foreign to them. In their minds, their wealth was a shield, an impenetrable barrier that could protect them from the struggles others faced. Their parents, however, had different views on this lifestyle. Chidi, although wealthy and influential, believed that hard work and discipline were the keys to success. He wanted his children to grow up with values that reflected his own struggles before he became a politician. He saw the dangers of overindulging, the potential for their wealth to corrupt their morals. These children are becoming spoiled, Ngozi, Chidi will often say, his face etched with concern. They need structure. They need to understand the value of hard work. All this wealth is getting to their heads. You have to stop spoiling them. Please stop spoiling my children. I don't like this. You are supposed to be a mother and their guidance. But Ngozi, ever the doting mother, would dismiss the concerns. Let them enjoy their lives, Chidi. They are children of influence and power. Why shouldn't they live as they please? We've worked hard for our money. Why would our children not enjoy? Should there be any difference? Why are you stopping them? Don't be such a killjoy. This is their time, and please leave them to enjoy. She saw nothing wrong with her children indulging in their desires, and her overindulgence created a divide between her and her husband. While Chidi wanted to set boundaries, Ngozi believed that their children's wealth was a right that allowed them to live however they wanted, free of any rules or limitations. As the years passed, Uche and Ada's behavior became increasingly erratic. Uche, despite its good looks and charm, had little interest in academics. He was more concerned with partying and living the high life. He had surrounded himself with a group of friends who were just as reckless as he was. Students who also came from wealthy families but lacked any sense of responsibility. They spent their days in clubs, drinking and smoking, and their nights as exclusive parties, indulging in all manner of hypnotic pleasures. But it wasn't just the parties that became troubling. Uche began to associate with darker figures, men involved in criminal activities, including cult groups that flourish in Nigerian universities. At first, it seemed harmless enough, just another part of university life, but it quickly spiraled out of control. Uche, eager to prove himself, was initiated into one of the most dangerous cults on campus. The Okocha's reputation was about to be marred forever, but Chidi and Ngozi remained blissfully unaware of their son's descent into danger. Ada, on the other hand, lived a more outwardly perfect life. She excelled academically and appeared to be a dutiful daughter in the eyes of many. However, behind the facade, she had her own secrets. Ada, too, was caught in the web of the same reckless behavior that consumed her brother. She slept around with different men, often using her beauty and charm to manipulate her way into circles of the most powerful and influential men in the city. She had no real direction in life, only the desire to live lavishly and indulge her every whim. She was always the center of attraction, always the life of the party, but her soul felt empty. Ada's promiscuity led to a situation she could not control, an unwanted pregnancy. It wasn't just any pregnancy, but one that threatened to ruin her entire life. As she tried to hide it from her parents, her guilt began to eat away at her, making her spiral deeper into self-destructive behavior. But even in her crisis, her mother remained oblivious, too caught in her own social circles to notice the signs. In the Okocha home, it was not well. Chidi could see the growing distance between him and his children. Every attempt he made to instill discipline was met with resistance. He would try to talk to them, only to be met with a dismissive attitude, or worse, a cold silence. Uche, Ada, what have you become? Chidi would often ask, his voice filled with sorrow. This is not the life I envisioned for you. You need to come back to reality. But Ngozi would intervene, always defending her children. Chidi, please, would you mind? Would you please let them live their young life? And they deserve to enjoy their lives and their parents' money. What is all this? Will you stop restricting your children from living their lives and enjoying it for once? This is becoming more dangerous than the way they live. The tension in the household grew. That was once a home of laughter and joy became a house filled with anger, frustration, and regret. The Okocha family was on the verge of falling apart, and the parents were too blind to see it. One fateful day, the worst happened. Uche's cult group had gotten into a violent confrontation with a rival group. The fight escalated quickly, and members of both groups were injured, some critically. Uche, in the midst of the chaos, was brutally attacked by members of the rival cult. When the news reached Chidi and Ngozi, they were shaken, but still they were indifferent. They had heard of such cult clashes before, but never imagined their son was involved. But soon, the devastating truth came to light. Uche was brought home that evening, covered in blood, barely alive. His friends, now scared and realizing the magnitude of the situation, abandoned him. Uche, in his final moments, managed to utter one last word to his parents. I'm sorry. I should have listened to you, Dad. Mom, I am so disappointed in you, and I hate you for making me become who I am, and for making me waste my life. As the last drained from his body, the Okocha's wealth and power could not save their son. The life drained totally from his body and he gave up the ghost. The same son they had pampered and allowed to live a reckless life was gone. Chidi collapsed in shock, his tears flowing freely as he realized that he had failed his child. Ngozi, too, was in utter disbelief, but it soon turned into a bitter regret. Her pampering had killed her son, but the tragedy did not end there. Ada, the once glamorous daughter, was also living a life of torment. Her pregnancy had ended in a horrific situation. She had contracted HIV from one of the men she had been with. Her world collapsed around her, and she became sick, both physically and emotionally. In the depths of her despair, she turned to her mother, seeking comfort, but all she received was scorn. "You are the reason for this, Ada," Ngozi screamed, too late realizing the extent of her failure. "You made your own choices." Ada, heartbroken and abandoned, fell into a deep depression. The guilt, shame, and sickness took hold of her, and she overdosed before she gave her final attempt to escape her misery. As she lay on her deathbed, Ada cursed her mother for never giving her the proper upbringing, for indulging her and allowing her to make the choices that ruined her life. "I wish I had known better. I wish I had had a better mother than you. I wish you had been a mother," Ada whispered before slipping into unconsciousness. "I'm sorry, Daddy, for not listening to you. Please forgive me." Ngozi was inconsolable. She collapsed beside her daughter's bed, holding her lifeless body in her arms, pleading for forgiveness, but it was too late. The damage had been done. The Okocha mansion, once a symbol of wealth and happiness, became a tomb of sorrow. Chidi, broken by the loss of both of his children, withdrew from public life. His political career collapsed, and his wealth no longer mattered. He could not move forward, unable to shake the regret that consumed him. His heart was heavy with guilt. He had not been there for his children, and now it was too late. Ngozi, too, was a shell of her former life. She spent her days crying. She became the shell of her former self. Her nights haunted by the ghost of her children. She begged Chidi for forgiveness, but he had none to offer. He had watched the destruction unfold, but the truth was he had been part of the failure. He had not stood firm enough against Ngozi's indulgence, and together he had allowed their children to fall. The Okochas had everything, but they lost it all. Wealth, power, and influence could not save them from the destruction their own hands had wrought. And in the end, all they had were left tears and the bitter knowledge that their action had led to the death of their beloved children. What do you learn from these stories, lovelies? Thank you for listening and watching. Please don't forget to share and don't forget to subscribe. And don't also forget to like. Thank you very much as you always listen.